More ETFs hitting the world stage. Hong Kong, of course, is getting ready to lower the boom on getting an ETF out there for both Bitcoin and guess what? Ethereum also. We'll break it down for you guys today. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into Tech Path. Today is our live show. And of course, if you're maybe brand new to the channel, I ask that you just subscribe right now. Just go ahead and hit that little button. You'll be subscribed. You'll start your crypto journey. Or maybe you just found us and you're like, hey, this is a good crypto channel. Let's go there too. So let's start with that. And let's thank our sponsor. And that is Tangem. If you guys are looking at going into self-custody, which most of you, I would say, already have started to go this direction, I'd love to know what you're using. If you're not using Tangem, check it out. It's one of, I think, the best and most secure wallets out there. And it's super slick in terms of a really easy to use card and app that gets you into just about every type of token, swap, all sorts of acquisition models. And of course, you get to get all your tokens off of exchanges and into your own hands. So check it out. Just go to tangem.com, hit the 3-card set and get that one. It'll take you right over and use our discount code. Boom, you're in. Let's go with a couple of points. Obviously from Friday, after a absolute bloody Friday and also Saturday, we saw, of course, pretty much everybody pointing to the issue of Iranian forces launching direct attacks against Israel. And of course, that has been pretty much the narrative over the weekend. Bitcoin, of course, fell 10% in less than 30 minutes. Dow Jones implied open points with a 400-plus point drop. Things are changing a little bit over the weekend as we started to see a pullback on the pressure from both Iran and Jerusalem as we start to see some changes there. Dow Jones, of course, I think will be a big question mark going forward. And also remember, crypto markets erased nearly 200 billion in market cap. So it was a pretty bloody Friday. We went ahead and looked at Saturday. We continued to see some movement on Saturday when, of course, the attacks started. The things that I'm watching really close are the commodities. And if you look at commodities in general, whether it's gold, crude oil, or others out there, we're going to continue to see some volatility here. This, of course, is the 1-hour chart just on crude right now, West Texas oil, and you can kind of see it fluctuating. But if you look at this over the last month, somewhat sideways. So I think whether or not this actually sees a $100 barrel again is a question mark. This could play into the bigger arc of narratives in terms of global macroeconomics, which I think obviously, as we know, affects Bitcoin's price. Further out there in the markets right now, another 130 million liquidated from the crypto market after the attack. So we saw a couple hundred, then another one. It was close to $1 billion in terms of liquidations overall. And I do want to go to a clip because this is a lot of people were trying to figure out how to play this. And this was actually Squawk Box trying to give insight on this. Listen to what they had to say.
I think it's nervousness just given the overall market, geopolitical, and everything going on with the 10-year. But look, I think it's a get out the popcorn moment. I think this is going to be a robust tech earnings season next few weeks. We view this more of a golden buying opportunity. And that's our view. This is not the time to run. It's actually the time to own the winners.
I think it's pretty remarkable, Frank, that we're only down 2.5% from all-time highs in the S&P 500. And in the past 16 months, we're up 33%. We've had to deal with hotter inflation, an unknown Fed, bank earnings on Friday, which weren't great, but I don't think, by the way, they were as bad as they reacted. We have the geopolitical issues. I think the reason we're bouncing back today is because Israel was actually pretty successful in terms of shooting down 99% of the missiles and drones that came at them. And I agree that with Dan that technology earnings will be good, but the thing is, other sectors' earnings will be good, and some of those sectors have really, fallen by the wayside. And I think there's your opportunity.
I look at traditional Wall Street, and then you kind of have to look at just the S&P 500 playing off of really around April 2nd through where we are right now. This is down almost 4%. Granted, we've had a lot of activity. This is on the daily of what we're seeing. I think, and we're starting to, do we crack under 5,000 again? And will be a bigger question to watch. I think it still is going to be leaning in on digital assets and some of these alternative commodities out there in the market. We'll probably see gold continue to move up. In fact, its chart was continuing a green candle as of today. So it too also responding, much like when you start to see these kind of conflicts, and that is people are looking for flight to safety, which are typically moving out of securities and traditional fiat, even though some people will go to cash, in most cases like that. But going to be some interesting time right now. Now, there's a tweet out there that looks at, past conflicts, historically. So this is one that I thought was interesting. Historically, war has been bullish on price action in the U.S. markets. 14 to 21 days is the target before we see maybe a summer, uptrend. If you look at, I won't go back to the Vietnam War, but the Gulf War had a by the invasion, and of course the market ripped up. We had a slight up on the Afghan War, and then the Iraq War, of course, was really kind of the beginning of this next evolution. And then, of course, right here is the Crimean crisis right here. And that in itself was also a rip up. But if you look back on the chart, let me see if I can go to that. I've got it right here. So if you look back at the chart, this I marked was when Russia hit Ukraine. And we pretty much had a little bit of a downtrend. This is the Bitcoin chart right now. So it took a little bit of an uptrend, but then, of course, we saw Bitcoin's all-time low at around 16K coming in. So I think you could play this both ways, but the big key here is playing it long-term. That's really what it boils down to, I think, for a lot of people. There are a lot of activity, opportunities in the market just because of the volatility that I think we will continue to see. The key here will be how does and if Hong Kong really does have an impact on whether it's on crypto in general, if it's on Bitcoin, or maybe even on the outlook for an ETH ETF. I know we have a poll out there on that, so make sure and hit that poll. But here's the story. Hong Kong approves first Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. We talked about it last week, is that the approval was coming. Monday would be the date. It has happened. And now it's just a matter of time before they start to launch this. So Harvest Fund, let me kind of zoom in on that, and Bosera Asset Management, China Asset Management, all those will launch their spot Bitcoin and ETFs very soon. Bosera will launch its spot crypto ETFs in collaboration with the Hong Kong-based Hashkey. So Hashkey, you guys know that. We've shown a lot about Hashkey and said, watch these guys. It's going to be one of the key players. There's reasons why, because most likely they will also influence what is the next ETF to come after Bitcoin and Ethereum. What would you guys think that would be? I'd love to know. Drop some comments over on the side. If you do have some questions, make sure and drop those in as well. We'll try to get some of those here before we get off the live. I want to go to an ad that was about the Hong Kong ETFs, and I want to get your opinion on it, but take a look.
A lot of you guys have been asking about Bitcoin ETFs in Hong Kong. Well, check this out. There's a giant Bitcoin ad right now talking about the ETF that's imminent in Hong Kong. There's definitely a lot of attention going on here because at the end of the day, when these ETFs launch, they need people to buy, right? So more and more ads, more and more attention, and Hong Kong's trying to push itself to be the center of Web3. So in this financial hub with so many people, we're going to see more of this.
So will we see more of it? And also there are obviously some limitations with a lot of the Chinese people in terms of the opportunity of what they have access to. So there are still some limitations around that. But if you look Bitcoin Magazine, we're talking about additional ads spotted in the subways ahead of the approval. Asia is really starting to ramp up for sure. I think you guys are hitting it on the head around what would be the next ETF, and that is Avalanche. We think that's, agree with you guys coming in. I'm looking at the comments here. Further into this, I want to just showcase this from Eric Balchunas, who is the analyst over at Bloomberg. He's been on our show a couple of times, and he analyzes ETFs worldwide, and he's looking at this one. Latest HK, Hong Kong, spot Bitcoin ETFs. They've been approved, but exists right now only in pause phase, not yet launched. Rumor has it, though, about a week or so, so not to compete with the Dubai conference. So there is a conference going on right now, and you look at what the opportunities are, I think maybe that is the case, but we'll see. I think it doesn't matter. One estimate around 25 billion, which would be insane. He thinks, this is where it gets kind of interesting, that they'll be lucky to get 500 million, and here's why. So market is tiny, 50 billion. Chinese locals can't buy the assets. That's another one, at least officially. 3 issuers that were approved versus, when we saw what happened here in Wall Street, massive, not necessarily anybody compared to a similar opportunity like what BlackRock and Fidelity has represented. Underlying ecosystem still a little bit less efficient. And then you look at the fees, likely to be around 1 and 2%. That's pretty high, really, versus the fee pretty much war that we have going on right now with the ETFs, even with GBTC starting to drop their fees. So you could take that position, or you could take the position that it's a completely different market and that the market is much more mature in terms of blockchain, Web3. They see the future of it, and it could be, and I think Asia is still considered a much more aggressive market when it comes to crypto. So it might be the alternative to that if you want to play the, kind of the other side of it. So we'll see. 9 questions and answers about the Hong Kong Bitcoin and ETH spot ETF. Couple of points in here were pretty clear. A handful of them I thought were interesting. The Securities and Futures Commission has already made clear a definition of long ago, but both Bitcoin and ETH are not securities. So they've already ruled on this. So I'm surprised that we haven't started to see more of that. Obviously, the SEC, that's a different story as to why there's a lot more political baggage there that's zoning in on that, why we're getting pressure on ETH. Currently, we've listed approximately over 4 dozen coins that are non-securities. And you've, of course, seen a lot of these out there in the market. And many of these have been over on, what we saw in terms of spot markets with Hashkey. Some of those that we've noticed, of course, you'll notice renders on their chain link. And then there's Avalanche right there, Maker, Polkadot, Polygon, etc. But Avalanche was one of the first, and it was one of the most unique ones. And if you kind of dive down into Hashkey and really look at what they're about, they seem to have a lot of affinity toward Avalanche. So could be that an opportunity for Avalanche maybe as a spot ETF. I don't know. It'll be interesting. This was a tweet that was back in August of last year. Let me kind of zone in on that one. This just showed you that Hashkey, which was the compliant exchange, and this was one of the only ones that was on there along with Matic, but Avalanche was on there. So if you go back and look, it could have some implementation. So I don't know if you're an Avalanche buyer or not, but especially where AVAX is right now, could be an opportunity. BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF aiming for record-breaking inflow. You look at the inflows coming in here. This again from Eric, showing a pretty good move right now. Fidelity's inflow streak ended 63 days on Friday as it took in Bookus. Nothing, and IBIT is still alive on 64 days. So possibly trying to go in and take the crown. So we'll see. This could be a big week, though. Still could be a big week for inflows overall. Make sure and put some questions in over on the side. We'll try to get to a few of those and get things going. Stat of the day, U.S. spot Bitcoin ETFs have more assets than the entire Hong Kong ETF market. I would agree with that, but you have to remember that the U.S. spot ETFs are the biggest in history. So you can't really compare it as, a uniqueness, because again, I think the difference there is that the Hong Kong ETF market has never had a Bitcoin or Ethereum ETF. Now you're giving that open to the entire Asian market, so it could be kind of cute in terms of playing out. Bitcoin whales now hold 9% of the circulating supply, totaling about 1.8 million in Bitcoin, including spot Bitcoin ETF. Whether you like that or not, some people would say, we don't necessarily like whales at that level, holding that much in terms of an asset like Bitcoin, but many people will say this is the way it's going to go. Bitcoin halving is just around the corner. Here we are 4 days out, 5 hours. This will probably adjust a little bit. We got 622 blocks left to track, and Bitcoin's price currently holding around 62.8. So it's going to get dicey, I think, here over the next few days before Friday. Friday will be a big date. We'll try to do another trading session, much like we did on Friday last week. Prior to the news on what was happening in Iran, we actually did a lot of calls on tokens that we anticipated some potential retracement on, especially in the altcoin markets when you look at Bitcoin dominance overall. I want to go to another clip real quick. This clip is getting into a little bit more about Coinbase and the opportunity here of going mainstream, because that's still the key here of understanding how mainstream people are going to, one, get what's happening here in crypto and relate to something they can understand very easily. Watch this.
Over time, your money gets you less. Does Bitcoin? Well, in 2012, one Bitcoin bought you this much pizza. In 2016, this much pizza. In 2020, this much pizza. And in 2024, well, you get the gist. Roughly every 4 years, the future supply of Bitcoin is reduced. So historically, you get more, not less.
The only way I can translate that ad is that the US dollar is fading and Bitcoin is the winner. So that in itself is it's a pretty good sign, I think. And I think most people understand that. Everybody loves pizza. Germany, major federal bank embraces crypto for institutional players. This would be another big play that, again, puts more pressure on US banks to potentially become custody holders of Bitcoin. Imagine if we really do start to see that. Even though you have Jamie Dimon out there spewing a lot of doom and gloom, remember, Jamie Dimon's still pitching his book, and you've got someone like Larry Fink saying, hey, Bitcoin and other digital assets, flight to safety. There's a lot happening in this space overall. Germany's largest federal bank now announced its plans to offer cryptocurrency custody services. I think it's just a matter of time before we start to see this, because remember, a lot of global citizens, and also I think we are going to see treasuries moving in this direction. And if you've got the capacity for custody, especially with international companies that potentially could dive into this. So definitely a lot going on out there overall in the markets. Last up here is a public opinion poll that really gets into some pretty good detail. Let me kind of zoom in on this for you guys. Takeaway 1, 69% of Americans dissatisfied with the current financial system. Really, it's that low? Because I'm going to say that that probably should be about 89% of Americans that are not satisfied with the current position of our financial market. 19% of Americans, registered voters, said they bought crypto. That's pretty significant when you look at the size of the U.S. A fifth of the country is in this. That's pretty good. I mean, because that right there would swing an election, regardless of what side and what line you lie on as a voter. If you had somebody that was very pro crypto, then I think it starts to change the game a little bit. 40% of 18 to 54 men, which we kind of know. Notably, crypto ownership is greatest among college grads because they understand science and they understand kind of the future of finance. And you can look at some of the postgraduate, at least among cryptocurrency. So good stuff there. Given 161 million Americans are registered to vote, that means that over 11 million registered voters own more than $1,000 worth of crypto. That's a big holder for a lot of people when you have so many people that are trying to figure out what to do in the markets at this time. So definitely a big deal. Let's go over to our poll, and then I'll take a few questions. We'll take a couple of looks at some charts here as well. Where are we on the poll? Will Hong Kong ETF approvals pressure the U.S. to approve Ethereum ETF in May? Yes. I'm going to have to go with no on that, guys. I feel like we are at a bit of a stalemate right now with the SEC. May is too early. That's next month. It's in 3 weeks. I don't anticipate that we'll see an ETF get approved. If we do, it will be a welcome sight, but I just don't see Gary Gensler bending the knee to what's happening. Now, he's going to get a lot of complaints. Don't get me wrong. He's going to get a lot of complaints from Capitol Hill, and they're going to be, calling him names and saying you're thwarting innovation and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, he has his marching orders from Senator Warren, and he's not going to deviate until something changes, and that only works with a vote. So think about it. All right, so let's see here. Jickwork says Matic could also be an ETF coming in. I don't know. I feel like Avalanche would be the one for the Asian market. It's such a powerful token and ecosystem of what Avalanche is doing overall. It's a good time to buy Ethereum and Avalanche. Yeah, well, Ethereum's down, actually hit under $3,000. So holding it around 3K. Let me kind of turn that on just a little bit. Still on downtrend though, overall, which has been something we've been watching on our sentiment data, which is very unique on ETH, which I anticipated to be a little bit more positive. But, if you look at Bitcoin dominance right now, still continue. Now it's starting to fall just a little bit. So this may adjust some to see some movement maybe back into the altcoin space just slightly. Solana, of course, took a big drop over the weekend. So, yeah, that one was the one to watch. Of course, it retraced and then retraced right back. So guess what? Volatility, welcome to it. Google Superstar says they're not gonna understand the pizza ad. How would they not understand that? Settlement is in the works. Maybe. Yeah, that could probably work. Let's see. Who else do we have? ETF. Okay. How can there be an AVAX ETF before a Solana ETF? Well, in Asia, it's all, all bets are off. It's really kind of, I think, the solidity of some of these solidity. Get that? The solid nature of some of these projects and the ability for what they've been able to do with really kind of connecting to the public. Avalanche has been able to do that. I mean, in terms of the Asian markets, they really have a good connection. All right, ETH going to be a 10K coin? Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to be there, Augustin. I mean, I believe that ETH is going to see those kind of growths. It's just a natural evolution, especially with these layer 2 activities. Because if you look at the layer 2 data, it continues to just defy logic. And I think we're going to see more of that, especially as we see more and more projects roll out. ETH ETF will be approved. BlackRock runs the show. I hope, Marlon, that you are right. Because if you are, I would be wrong and be welcome to be wrong on that one. I think it's going to get approved. It's just a matter of time. I don't think it happens in May. That's the problem. And of course, you still have rate cuts around the corner potentially. Maybe. I don't think it happens in June. A lot of people are pointing to June. I still think it's going to be later in the year. For sure. XRP ETF next. Diamond hands on that from RB. I don't know. I'm kind of in and out on the XRP ETF. Michael Saylor said he will buy all the Bitcoin he can. Yes, of course he will. Very nice. U.S. is not the only company off ETF. Crypto must have a break board. Yeah, I think you're right. We do and are starting to see this. But back to the point of the show, you got Hong Kong on the move. You've got Germany on the move with bank custody. You've got obviously the EU and MiCA on the move with regulatory alignment. And you have the tech community really in Asia embracing Web3. All those markets. Guess what? I didn't mention the United States. And that's the one that matters, I believe, the most in terms of potential investment opportunities. Why the ETF is cooking. We talked about this on a show at length is why, because remember, ETFs were available in Canada much longer and in advance of the US Wall Street ETFs. What happens when the Wall Street ETFs hit the market? It was a party, different kind of scenario. I'm not saying that Canadian ETFs are bad. I'm just saying the market share is quite different. The difference there versus Hong Kong is the market awareness of crypto. That's the big difference. So we'll see how it goes in about 3 weeks. We'll know. All right, if you guys are not subscribed to the channel, get in right now. It's a great place to get our show, but also access to our Diamond Circle. And that's a great place to get additional content that we don't do here on the show on YouTube. And of course, some of our podcasts over there as well. Catch me on X at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.